This is David Cowen. We are live at Clock. I'm with Jason Barnwell, who is the Chief Legal Officer of Agiloft. Many of you might remember Jason from so many years at Microsoft, but now is with Agiloft and doing really interesting work, taking that background and that experience with one of the biggest, baddest companies in the world, and now taking it into and bringing those lessons and that capability into our world. Welcome to Clock, man.
David, thank you so much for having me. I hope that what you said was true. I need you as my hype man wherever I go. That was amazing.
Well, no, I think what you did, you did something really cool, right? As I watched you and read you on LinkedIn and, watched you and saw you at conferences, your background at Microsoft, 15 years, general manager and associate general counsel for monetization and business planning. See, that's a discipline. Business planning is a discipline. I mean, it's really OCD, man. It's like, really, how do I want to put this? That's not typically what we get in our legal ops world, right? So you're bringing all of that forward to us. You're going to make all of us better, for that. So tell me, in the time that you're now with Agiloft, what is it you bring from Microsoft that you're like, wow, this is really handy? Kind of like a baseball player's like, man, I've been taking batting practice for 15 years. This is nothing.
Well, that is a generous framing. I would say at Microsoft, I made every type of mistake. And so I got to learn a whole bunch. And let's bucket into a couple categories. So the first was just the technical aspect of lawyering, really helpful. I've jockeyed all kinds of contracts, and that's incredibly valuable. And I had the experience of our customers trying to drive an outcome in a contract at small scale, at large scale, many different species of contracts as an individual contributor, as a manager, as a practice lead, and pretty much all of those personas. And then ultimately being somebody who led the legal business operations and strategy team. And so at that point, you're now a support overlay for contracting at massive scale. And then for one of my later bits, I was the GM for digital transformation. And so thinking about how you literally bring new sets of tools online into a social substrate and get people to adopt that and change how they work at scale, like those are all experiences that were incredibly valuable for me. And I think some of the most valuable learning experiences that I take away from all of that time is that it is very human work, the work of leadership, of attracting people to go on a journey together, to cohere their efforts to a common frame and to work together in synchrony. Like that is one of those things that I think is incredibly hard to learn unless you do it wrong every possible way. And I have the benefit of made legendary mistakes.
Who were some of your mentors, coaches, advisors? Anybody want to give a shout out to? Because what you've touched on is not what's prevalent here at Clock, right? What's prevalent at Clock, of course, are the tools and the technology and the process and the reimagination and the reinvention, how we put it all together. But leadership is not one of those primary focuses here. Who were your mentors that helped you get there? And what else do you want to say about that, which is so important, which is leadership?
So there's a legendary bench of leaders at Microsoft who, they were incredibly generous with their time. I would say that if you look at a Brad Smith, he is an amazing storyteller. And what he does is he helps people in the organization understand that if you want to convey something that is complex and you want people to be able to act on it, what you need to do is create a narrative that is approachable and something that he can hold on to that contains the information that you want to give them and then calls them to action. And so storytelling is one of the most powerful tools that I think we have as leaders. It is literally the original kind of like interface for how humans would learn from each other, to transmit information.
Generation after generation.
That's how we started. So when you think about like storytelling, like Brad Smith was amazing. I would say that Neil Suggs, who's now at Google, was one of the most brilliant strategists I've ever seen. His ability to basically look down the road and ascertain what are the things that we should be doing right now that make us more fit to compete in the future frame. Like he was just exquisite at that. and really crystallizing it into an understandable set of like core principles that people could actually apply to their work. So he was great at that. Hossein Nobar, who's now CLO at ServiceNow, is just an incredible builder of teams, in as much as he was legendary at giving people an identity that like brought them together and put them into common cause where they would lock arms with each other and then go charge up the hill. I mean, I can keep going. Like I was very fortunate.
So leadership and strategy are keys in our industry right now. But you also mentioned something else before we jumped onto the pod, which was the importance of risk management, risk appetite, and how the emerging role of the GC, the emerging role of the CLO, has got this risk component to it. You want to riff on that just a little bit?
Sure. I think that it is evolving as we speak, and you're seeing almost like a. I think you're starting to see some paradigm shift on that. So let's back up. So first of all, lawyers, we tend to have an interesting relationship with risk. And one of the reasons we do is because we often participate in the downside and we often don't participate in the upside. And that is a core framing of why many of us have such a fraught relationship with it. And if I was going to like cut to the end on this, the thing that I think you see the most evolved CLOs and GCs doing is figuring out, how can I start participating in the upside of risk? So that is like the core framing I would kind of put out there. But what you're seeing is an increased appetite for a version of, let's just call it probabilistic practice, right? And what that's saying is we are now starting to accept the notion that we will not be perfect on all things. That especially things that need to go fast and need to happen at high volume and where we can make repair later, we are going to take more risk. And that means literally accepting outcomes that are less good. And then, of course, there are some things, in the practice where it has to be great and it has to be, just near perfect every time. But the opening of the aperture on the other parts of the practice is creating way more space to play. And in this time where we're starting to really think about how we apply machine intelligence to our work, this creates all kinds of opportunity, because many of these machines that we're dealing with are inherently probabilistic. They're not deterministic. And so the combination, I think, of some of the back pressure that's coming to really the function leads for legal, and this kind of new view combined with the capabilities that are coming online, is creating some pretty special circumstances.
I hear you. The way I'm hearing you say this is that legal is becoming is included earlier. Why? Because you're participating in the risk earlier. Here's really what I want to say. Inclusion, the upside risk is the accelerator.
Yes.
Upside risk is the accelerator in a car. Downside risk is the brake. And when you're called in when the car is off the road and you've got a brake, it's like, oh yeah, of course I'm the brake. And like, that's not a lot of fun, but I'm really, really good at it. So that's what you got paid for. But now, because of insights, right? Next gen technology, right? AI next gen technology gives the legal department, CLO and his or her department, the opportunity to go like, wait, did you know? And all of a sudden the stakeholders are like, wait, I did not know that. And it's like, oh, why don't you come to the party with us? Why don't you come to the meeting with us? Why don't you become more included with us? Now you're included in the upside risk. It's really you're invaluable now because you've got insights that were heretofore not possible before.
So you are literally jumping ahead to where I was going to go. And I love this. So, at Agiloft, we make CLM. We make ways to extract more value from your contracts using machine intelligence. Like, that's what we do. And my working hypothesis is that the future state of legal function leads, we are going to need to sell some kind of signal, some kind of business intelligence powered by contracting back into the enterprise to establish our value. Mm-hmm. And when we do that, we get to participate in the upside. Because what you end up doing is saying, like, look, we have been contracting for however long, and we now have this corpus of intelligence of what happens when we try to make a deal. And what I'm going to bring to you is a set of trade-offs. And we are going to agree that these trade-offs are acceptable because they reflect upside there's maybe some risk if we're going to give on some of these terms, but we can increasingly start modeling what the upside is. We can literally say, look, if you're willing to flex on this, we can speed this deal up.
Yeah.
Because on a probabilistic measure, we've done a bunch of these, and we know that when we stay hard on this term, it takes X amount of time. And when we are willing to give on this, it takes X minus something. But like, we need to lock arms and say, yes, we all agree that that is a good deal for all of us. But that now becomes something the CLO or the GC can trade in at the table of the chiefs, right? Like, that starts to become some capital that I don't think they had before. And that's pretty special.
How many people are on a big team, big legal team that would benefit from this?
I mean, that's a great question. So anybody who is responsible for any kind of aggregated responsibility, this is incredibly relevant for. Like, anybody who effectively has to manage work, any kind of portfolio of work, that is something that is beneficial for them.
Portfolio of work, great phrase.
Yeah. I mean, because what we're really talking about is the aggregates, right? So if you are somebody who is working a single deal, your primary thing is like, I need to get this deal done. And it is the work of managers and leaders to look at the portfolio and say, how is this performing? Are we seeing the performance characteristics that suggest that, man, we are delivering outsized value here? Because ultimately, that's how you earn more investment from the business. If you can't demonstrate that if you give me more resources, I will give you a prioritizable outcome, then that's a pretty tough conversation to have.
Well, time to deal is magical.
Yeah.
If you can shrink the time to deal, it's like, here's your cape.
Yes.
You get a cape and a seat at the table and a key to the executive lunchroom.
So I think what we are increasingly going to be able to offer using contract intelligence is faster deals, but like literally predictive, like saying, if you take this choice, we think this can go 3 days faster. And the thing is, if you're nearing the end of the quarter and you're running red on revenue, you're like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense. Let's try to reel this in. And then it starts to become a data-informed decision. And when it's a data-informed decision where you can start saying, this is the upside, these are the risks we're taking, it becomes completely defensible, right? The other thing that's amazing is you start to be able to literally look across the entire portfolio. And so you start to understand, like, in the aggregate, what have I taken on here? So there is just a lot of value that I think comes from having a deeper understanding of your contracts, where you can literally start mining business intelligence that speaks natively to the people in the organization that care about money, revenue, profit, things like that.
The comment that you made before was like such a schoolyard comment. I heard it as a schoolyard comment, which is like, here you've got a table of CXOs and the CLO comes around and all the other CXOs are talking about their data wins. And the CLO goes, I don't have any data wins today. It's like, you can't play anymore. You're going to get kicked out of the clubhouse. Like, nobody wants to be your friend. Like, tell us in a more elevated Microsoft story how that actually happens.
So the way this ends up playing out is in budgeting, right? So what happens is, within any organization, there is a limited amount of resource. And the
AKA a fight.
Yeah, your words, not mine. But yes, there's a limited amount of resource, and what it turns into, they're called conversations, but they're really civil arguments. Where basically what happens is, at a certain level of abstraction, what happens is everybody comes in with their bids for, these are projects that we can fund within our function, and they offer a story or a theory or a hypothesis of, this is how it creates relative enterprise value. And then implicitly what is happening is the CFO is creating the circumstances for the ranking or prioritization of all of those investments. And then the people who have the worst story, they're below the cut line, and it's like, maybe come back next year.
Cut line, dude. Strong, really strong. I think if you're listening to this pod, that's really powerful storytelling right there, to go like, where are you in this? Like, who are you in the story? So if you're listening right now, like, who are you in the story? Are you the CXO? Are you the wannabe CXO? Are you the support to that CXO? So what do you say to, and we'll close here, what do you say to those that are trying to support the CLO, CXO? I'm trying, man. I really am. But I can't get your attention.
The thing I would offer is you want to show up with an expression of the value that you think you can unlock that requires the least amount of cognitive translation by the person you're trying to bring with you. And I think this is a general statement. So basically, so let me put that in simpler words, maybe. Hey, CLO, I have something to offer you from the work that we're doing now that you would be very proud to show off to your peers, because they will think, wow, that's incredibly cool, but it's also valuable and it will require almost no translation cost.
Nice.
It will just be natively valuable to them, and they'll be like, wow, I like that. Give me more of that. Bring me more of that. Because the reality is, in most of our organizations, the trend line is you need to get consensus on investment. Like, people generally have to be like, yeah, I think that makes sense, because what they're implicitly doing is saying, I'm not going to fight you on that. And if you have a compelling argument for value, then people, and that even better, people participate in the benefit that you are creating, then what you're doing is you're creating something that is attractive to them and that they will support.
So for those that are listening to this pod and they want more Jason Barnwell, where do they go? Where do they hear more of this kind of conversation? They dial you up directly. You've got a podcast out there. You're writing on a regular basis. Where do I get me some more Jason?
Well, the easiest way is just to go to Agiloft. Just come to us. Like, I'm easy to find. So yeah, I'm out there. And if people want to talk about stuff, I'm here to help.
Okay. Jason Barnwell, thank you so much. I know you've got a crazy evening in front of you. Thanks for taking the time to share some of your thoughts and some of your insights with us. I look forward to seeing you on the journey.
You're the best, David. Thank you.
Thanks, man. If you enjoyed this show, be sure to give us a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your shows. And if you want to take your career from now to next, never eat alone.